What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Unlockables podcast, the story of video games, the people who play them, and the memories made along the way. As always, my name is Eric. I am your host who is ambivalent to both good and evil, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. It means so much to me that you would tune in wherever, whenever in time and space you might be located. Check out what's going on in the world of video games. And I'm guessing by you, if you clicked on this episode, you've seen the title of the episode. We are going to be talking about the infamous 2005 game Shadow the Hedgehog for the PlayStation 2 and GameCube. And if you don't know why, earlier this year, Sega announced that it is officially the year of Shadow the Hedgehog, and we were all very, very excited about that. I assume it's probably because they have a new Shadow game coming out. It's like Sonic and Shadow Generations, and I think Shadow's going to be in the third Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So, year of Shadow indeed. It didn't work out for Nintendo when they did it, so maybe Sega will have better chance. But I couldn't review this game on my own, so I reached out to one of my best friends in the podcasting community, and the only man who I thought would be able to do this game justice with me. My guest today is the ultimate life form. It is Keith Gasper from the Main Quest podcast. Keith, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing really good, and before anybody turns this off, just know that we're not talking about a Sonic game today. It's not a Sonic game. So don't worry. Don't worry about me being here. But I am almost, the perfect guest probably, but also not really fit to also talk about Shadow the Hedgehog either. We'll get into it. But thanks, man. It's always good to be here. It's going to be a good time.
Definitely. Speaking of a good time, I just kind of want to ask you, I kind of pitched this idea to you pretty early, and I think you agreed without much hesitation. I think pretty much as soon, at least I don't think I twisted your arm too much. I think soon as they announced like the whole year of Shadow thing, I'm pretty sure one of us like screenshotted the tweet and sent it to the other. And then I'm pretty sure I was like, well, I guess we have to play Shadow the Hedgehog this year. And that was kind of the end of it. So when I originally pitched that idea to you, what was your gut reaction?
It's exactly as how you said. I pretty much was like, yeah, of course.
Okay,
pretty simple.
Right?
Yeah. And that's only because I guess I'm just a sicko. I'm just a weird fucking sicko that despite what people say, I'm very interested in video games, and I'm interested in weird video games, and Shadow the Hedgehog has always looked like a weird fucking video game to me. And anybody coming from my show knows that I talk about, I guess not necessarily obscure games, but like kind of niche retro games, a lot of licensed games and stuff like that. A big part of my childhood. And so like, I've been through the ringer, man. And so I'm like, I mean, how bad could Shadow the Hedgehog possibly be? And then I got excited because one year I was doing my listener request month, and in the pot of games to pick was Shadow the Hedgehog, and I was kind of like excited. I don't remember who put that in there, but I was like, man, I kind of hope I get Shadow the Hedgehog, and I didn't. So I was kind of bummed about that. And so, yeah, I mean, basically when you presented me the opportunity and knowing that it is the year of Shadow, which is extremely stupid, I had to jump on it. I had to finally play this game and knock it off. And it just seems like, despite this being Sonic the Hedgehog adjacent, I've been playing a lot of Sonic games this year, and I just felt like it was right.
Well, I'm happy that I could help you scratch off one forgotten item from your podcast playlist there from your shows past. But
was it you?
Was it? I didn't put it in there. I don't think so. I would never. I was gonna say I would never actively wish that upon you, but here I am having like directly requested that you play it with me.
I guess. Yeah.
So I guess I kind of did actively wish it upon you. But for those of you who may not be familiar, like, he's not joking, and saying that this is a weird game is probably the nicest thing that'll be said about this game
I mean,
for the length of this episode.
There's always it seems like the people that have the discussion around are video games art, which is a stupid question at this point, because yeah, of course they are, but it's always gamers. The gamers are so hard up, they always want to talk about are video games art, which I don't think is a real, it's doesn't need to be a discussion. I think people who are just so adamant on saying that it's not art maybe need to redefine what art can be now in 2024. And the two things, or I guess I should say the one thing rather, that connects art is emotion, right? I mean, a lot of emotion is conveyed through art and vice versa, right? And this definitely elicits emotions. So is Shadow the Hedgehog not art? As weird as it is?
I wouldn't argue that it is an art, because I think the other component of that is, yes, art does elicit emotion. And I think art by its very nature invites critique and criticism because it means different things to different people. So I would not argue that it is not art. Whether or not it's good art is probably the argument. Because, for those of you not listening, this game kind of has just a very infamous reputation, even amongst 3D Sonic games, which I think have a little bit more dubious reputation among video games in general. It's usually not being very good in the eyes of critics, at least. The Sonic fans love their games, and God bless the Sonic community. We're not here to bash the Sonic community or anything like that. Like, they love their games, they support their games, and that's more than a lot of franchises that exist today can honestly say about their fans, because any other franchise seems very divisive, and people yell at you and fight. But Sonic fans, they love Sonic, they keep supporting Sonic, they keep getting more Sonic games. So that's a lesson into how to get your favorite video games, if you want more of them, is to support them, even if they're not looked upon as critically successful, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, should we, for the layman who may have clicked on this episode and was like, did he spell Sonic wrong? Like, who's Shadow the Hedgehog? Isn't it Sonic the Hedgehog? I mean, Shadow he's a black Sonic. He has frosted tips. He has severe abandonment issues, and he skates around on Heelys. So that's who we're talking about today.
We'll get more into Shadow's character later in the episode when we have a robust discussion about the plot of this game, because there is plot, and I think it says a lot, or maybe nothing at all, about Shadow as a character and what they were trying to achieve with him. But goddamn, does he look cool. Now, before we actually get into the game proper, let's just talk about a little bit of background information here. Shadow the Hedgehog is a platform game developed by Sega Studios USA and published by Sega, obviously starring Shadow the Hedgehog, who made his debut 2 games earlier in Sonic Adventure 2. Sega wanted to make a game starring Shadow to capitalize on his popularity and resolve some lingering plot threads about him that were left over from Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes. Ooh, lingering plot threads in a Sonic game. It was
they
directed
wanted to
and
resolve
written,
the issues.
They have to be resolved. We have to know what happens. It was directed and written by Takashi Iizuka. It was produced, of course, by Yuji Naka, who would later go on to be found guilty for insider trading. And longtime Sega composer Jun Senue would head up the soundtrack. Now, this game was released on November 15th, 2005 in North America, November 18th, 2005 in Europe, and December 15th, 2005 in Japan, which I find kind of funny that Japan got it like a whole month later. I wonder if that had anything to do with them trying to release a more edgy Sonic game, but we'll get into that in a couple minutes here. It was released on the GameCube, the PlayStation 2, and the Xbox. I have some contemporary review scores, just to kind of set the stage here. It is sitting on Metacritic, it is sitting at a 51 out of 100 for the GameCube version, 49 out of 100 on Xbox, and 45 out of 100 on PS2. OneUp.com gave it a D- for the PS2, but a C+ for the GameCube and the Xbox. Eurogamer gave it a 5 out of 10. Game Informer had 2 scores present, a 4 out of 10 and a 2 out of 10. So maybe for the different versions, but still not spectacular. GameSpot gave it a 4.8 out of 10 for the GameCube and Xbox, a 4.7 out of 10 for the PS2. I don't know why what does 0.1 difference off a review score like really matter at this point? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
IGN gave it a 4.9 out of 10 for the GameCube and Xbox version, 4.7 out of 10 for PS2. Maybe I included too many review scores. Nintendo Power, surprisingly, Sonic's rival, Nintendo Power, giving it an 8 out of 10.
I mean, this was the first like exclusive Sonic game on other consoles. So
true. Maybe they were just trying to like write some bad history between the two. Official Xbox Magazine gave it a 7 out of 10. X-Play, which funny enough, you mentioned in our pre-conversation, the X-Play review gave it a 1 out of 5 stars. I got an Australian newspaper based out of Melbourne, the Herald Sun, gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the Times, a British newspaper, gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. So not exactly glowing reviews on the critic end, but it would go on to sell 2.06 million units as of March 2007, and it would receive the PlayStation 2 Greatest Hits treatment later on.
That's insane.
Dude, it gets crazier. I'll let you react to it once I've read like all the general stuff. It was voted the best game of 2005 in official JetX Magazine's Reader Awards. Fun fact, JetX was a children entertainment brand owned by the Walt Disney Company that related to their slate of more action-oriented programming. So, yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog was the Reader's Choice Game of the Year in 2005. It was named the best platformer of 2005 by Nintendo Power readers, which shocking because they know good platforms because they've had good platform games in Mario. I guess there weren't a lot of platformers in 2005, and there's a lot of like cross-genre stuff like Sly Cooper, like Lego games or Psychonauts that are probably more as classified as like action adventure maybe. So yeah, this is the Nintendo Power 2005 best platformer. Surprising. So Keith, what do you think about some of that critical reception? What do you think about some of those awards and the sales and all that fun stuff?
Best platformer?
I
cannot believe. Well,
Nintendo Power readers. Nintendo.
Well, these
Power
are the
readers,
right?
Yes,
so
it's a reader's choice.
They're stuck on a dying console. I mean, I can't blame them. They're reaching for anything they can. But like, I'm surprised that Shadow the Hedgehog, I mean, did get a PS2 and GameCube release because it's kind of an Xbox game. Like, this seems like an Xbox game when you look at it. You're just looking at screenshots. You're just like, oh yeah, the very early era of Xbox where they were kind of like stereotyped as the console where you want to shoot people on, you know? Like, that's what it was. And I did describe Shadow earlier, but I forgot to mention he has guns.
Yes.
So also that. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm not entirely surprised by a lot of these scores. I'm surprised by, I mean, first of all, that's crazy that a Walt Disney owned company awarded Shadow the Hedgehog of all games. Probably like, I don't know, maybe don't put guns in your children's video game. I'm not sure, Disney, but also, I mean, Disney's very different nowadays, but back then, thinking about Disney's, it's different. But
I just thought of this too to interject this, considering that JetX is a Walt Disney owned like brand company. 2005 was the year Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. It was a Disney video game, and it couldn't even win on a Disney outlet or whatever. Yeah. I don't know anything about JetX. It seems like it was maybe like more action-oriented programming for like young boys or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I never heard of it.
If you were like an 8-year-old, would Shadow appeal to you?
Maybe. I mean, I was playing this and my 6-year-old was like, he saw Shadow. He didn't know who Shadow was, but he was like, "Oh, that's bad Sonic." And he was kind of like put off. He was kind of put off by it. Like he wants Sonic, you know. Right. So I don't know, but yeah, man. I mean these scores are completely fair compared to what I played, and also like as we continue here, I'm not even gonna pretend like I know anything about Sonic Adventure 2 or Sonic Heroes, so I'm just getting that out of the way. So I might have a lot of questions that you can't answer and that your listeners will probably be yelling at me for. So
that's fair because I didn't actually realize when we set out to play this game how entwined it was with, like, I guess you could say Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes. I didn't realize it was kind of like continuing off of the storylines that those games had built. I just didn't realize that. And then going back and kind of doing some research, I actually watched the full story of, like, someone explained the full story of Sonic Adventure 2, like, while I was at work. I was just listening to it. So there's a little bit of there's a little bit of crossover stuff in the story that kind of ties into this, but I don't, this is like spoiler for plot, which we'll talk about later, but I don't think they do the best job of tying anything new that they add in this game back to the original games in really any kind of meaningful or impactful way that you would argue is a good character arc for Shadow. Not that I would argue that there are good character arcs in Sonic games to begin with, but if you were trying to judge it based on anything like that, I don't think they did a good job. But yeah, we're not going to talk about that first. We're just going to kind of talk a little bit, some general thoughts. I usually like to open my episodes with just kind of some general thoughts, which we've already been doing. And I've kind of bullet pointed just general thoughts I had when I was just writing out the document, right? So I got to say, Keith, I cannot for the life of me understand why this video game exists. I don't understand the need for it. I mean, I understand why it exists, but I don't know why it's necessary. Because I understand, you know, Shadow is like this brand new character. Oh, he's kind of cool. He's like anti-Sonic. He's like Sonic's rival, and he's obviously was very popular in the previous two games. So popular enough that Sega was like, hey, we should put him in a starring role and try to give him his own video game. Like that makes sense. Nintendo did that with like every single Nintendo character that got popular alongside Mario, and now has like their own game series. So like I 100% understand like why they did it. But, and again, I'm the most positive motherfucker about video games that you'll find on the internet. Like I have a hard time. There's maybe like 2 games that I've ever played that I was just like, I hate this. I can't stand it. One of those being Mario the Lost Levels is like the worst game I've ever played. Like I don't get it, Keith. Like why do you think this game exists?
I don't know either. Because in general, Sonic has always had a rival, whether it be Dr. Robotnik, and then very early on you get Metal Sonic, and then you get Knuckles.
Didn't even think about Metal Sonic.
And I think Knuckles is very indicative of just the, you know, pop culture at that time. You know, East Coast, West Coast hip hop was huge. Knuckles his design is very Rastafarian. You know, it's very urban. And so I think, and that's the thing too with Sonic, I think as the games go, they're very indicative of the time and when they were released. And so like Shadow the Hedgehog is a very like post 9/11 game where it's like, it's not exactly like a military type thing, like very like support the troops or something like that. But there is a military aspect of this game, when the military in the game, by the way, is called GUN, which is an acronym for something. I don't know what exactly. But and there's this whole conspiracy with the president and the alien invasion and stuff we'll talk about in the plot maybe. But So it's like it has like this post 9/11 tinge to it where it's like it just feels very like in a time and place. And that's just kind of where a lot of video games were. And you mentioned in the development history that the game came out later in Japan. And I wonder if that was one of the, tried and true Sonic team things where they're like, we don't really fucking know what to do here in America. And they don't know what to do over there in Japan. And things are kind of getting mixed up between the two. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not sure if... Yeah, I'm not sure when or if they have two different development teams still. Yeah, I'm not completely sure about that off the top of my head. But either way, I digress. So, yeah, I don't know why Shadow the Hedgehog, other than just them trying to, like you said, maybe flesh out Shadow as a character, which I'm going to say, Eric, I played this game. I did 2.5 playthroughs.
God bless you, sir.
I still don't know who Shadow the Hedgehog is.
Okay, so first thing is I looked up gun, and I made sure to type in Sonic Gun Group to not just search gun in my Google history because I did not want that. Gun stands for Guardian Units of Nations, which is very low on the acronym tier of groups in video games, I would say. Like, not spectacular. They clearly just wanted a group to spell gun.
Honestly, in 2024, I would not even blink if that was some sort of like offshoot of our military today.
It sounds like one of those hardcore like Second Amendment militia groups that you read about. Not to get like overtly political on the podcast, but it's interesting that you bring that up because yes, I agree that post kind of 9/11 period, you kind of see a lot of this in video games to the point where the premise of Shadow is basically has to do with like this kind of like almost like alien invasion type of thing that is kind of one of the antagonizing forces. And it's funny because if you like see alien invasion, you would think, oh, they just call them aliens. But there are several times where they call them terrorists, and the president is getting briefed on like the alien invasion or like the general is, and they're like, we'll never surrender to terrorists. And I'm like, bro, it's an alien invasion. It's not terrorists. Like, what are you doing? So I'm really glad that you brought up the kind of, like you said, this feels like an Xbox game, and it's no secret that this is an attempt to push Sonic to appeal to a more like, I guess they thought this was like a more adult audience, and they thought that older audiences or older gamers or even younger kids wanted something that was more like edgy, right? This is the kind of time where we're getting like Grand Theft Auto, and I think like Gears of War would come out after this, and like you said, the Xbox games where it felt like violence was just kind of the point, and everything kind of had the brown filter on it and was super edgy for like that middle 2000s period. And it felt like it was an attempt to do that because just so much about this game is just dripping in, I can't think of a better word for it. It's just dripping in like edginess.
Well, and the problem too is that the game also, just by means of the dialogue, still sounds like it was written by a 15-year-old like the rest of the Sonic games.
Yes.
So it's like the writing isn't even good, so it's also still very cringy, but also you're trying to appeal to like because at this time, like this, I mean, I wasn't even glancing at the Sonic franchise by the time this game came out. Like I was already too old for it. Which some people are like, oh, you're never too old for Sonic. Okay, whatever, who gives a shit? But like this, like I don't know, other than, yeah, like you said, maybe like between 8 and 13-year-olds, sure, if like, yeah, maybe that could find it appealing. You'd be like, oh my god, yeah, Shadow's so cool, he's the darker Sonic, and like literally which, by the way, like the one thing I know about, sorry, it just came to mind, the one thing I do know about Sonic Adventure 2 is that when the game came out, I heard of Shadow. I knew Shadow was a thing in that game, and I know that like one of the main plot points, it might not be the main plot point, but it is a plot point nonetheless, is that people were confusing Shadow for Sonic and were like out to kidnap Sonic the Hedgehog. Like the world had a grudge against him, and that's just dumb. They don't look anything alike. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with any of my points, but there was something else I wanted. I think it was interesting because in your notes, you also talked about how kind of Nintendo always had like their dark variants. You got your Dark Link, you got technically it was like Shadow Mario, right? In Mario Sunshine or something like that.
Yeah, like the Paint Mario or whatever that was actually Bowser Jr. Yeah.
Right. And then you got Dark Samus, you got Dark Pit. You know, Nintendo always has dark variants. Sega never really had that. And so Shadow is technically the darker variant of Sonic in a lot of ways. The one thing I don't understand, and I never understood about the characters in the Sonic universe, is that they can all run fast. All of them. All of them are as fast as Sonic. Even starting with Tails and Sonic 2. Always just as fast as Sonic. And doesn't that... Again, we're going off the rails. This isn't a Sonic podcast. But like,
it's all good. It's all good.
Doesn't that make Sonic a lot less special?
Yeah. I would say that... you know, I was going to bring up your point. I'm glad you kind of circle back around to it, because I was going to circle back on your point where you talked about how Sonic has always kind of had a rival. So the point of making Shadow doesn't really make sense, because he's always had like Knuckles or Eggman, even though Eggman's probably more like antagonistic than like the kind of rival variant. But he's had Knuckles. He's had characters that have kind of in each game stepped up and kind of like been that not fully antagonistic force, but he's surpassed all of them. So like at a certain point, I could see that this would be like a natural evolution in the storytelling of Sonic, that you would want somebody else other than Eggman to kind of push him as the protagonist, right? I mean, Eggman already has proven he can't stand up to him. Sonic's kind of, even though the characters play as fast as him, he's kind of surpassed everybody around him. So the next obvious step to me, like the step makes sense. You would introduce a character like Shadow that is essentially Sonic's polar opposite. That's kind of like tropey anime storytelling at that time period. I mean, it kind of, you know, you have Vegeta with Goku. You kind of have, when I watch Yu-Gi-Oh, like you have Kaiba with Yugi. You have kind of like that, not fully evil force, but kind of like rival force that doesn't always work with the protagonist, but will if they have to, and is kind of like can kind of toe that morality line a little more. And so I understand coming up with Shadow as a concept and like that, and he would appeal to me as a young kid. He looks pretty cool.
But I always thought of Knuckles as like a much cooler character, which again, to be fair, I still don't know anything about Shadow after playing this. But I always thought like, you know, there's a lot more of a moral gray area with Knuckles being basically being you know, gaslit by Dr. Robotnik.
Right.
And I think that was really cool. And then I just kind of hate how I guess basically since Shadow came onto the scene, just kind of turned Knuckles into an idiot. Like he's just a doofus now, which is like, I guess, you know, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just salty that Shadow kind of stole the spotlight from Knuckles.
Well, the Sonic cast has that Dragon Ball Z thing where once they fight the enemy, then the enemy becomes the friend. Sure. So now everyone's just like friends. Like now, especially with like what I know of modern depictions of Sonic, like everyone's just basically friends with Sonic. Even more of like those ambivalent characters where you go, oh, traditionally Rouge and even Shadow. Like I'm sure I haven't played a lot of the other Sonic games, but it seems that when push comes to shove and the world needs saving, Sonic and Shadow will set aside their differences and basically save the world together. So, I mean, yeah, really, everybody, like Sonic just kind of wins everybody over to his side with his just relentless coolness and charm, I guess. and then you have to keep introducing. It would lend to the natural evolution of an introduction of a character like Shadow. But again, like you said multiple times at this point, this game does not do anything to kind of inform you of like what Shadow's true character is, because of the way the game is structured, because of the way the story plays out, and because the game wants it to kind of be like this, not almost like this choose your own adventure, to be like you can make Shadow whatever you want him to be, but also there's like a true ending to the game where it's like this is what Shadow truly is. So between all like the different endings and the true endings, and then the way that the Shadow the Hedgehog game kind of retcons the stuff that happens in the previous two games based on my understanding, it still just leaves you with kind of like this blank slate of a character where it's just like, oh, Shadow is morally gray, and he can operate in that zone, and that's kind of his only defining characteristic. He's been in 3 games now, a significant part of 3 games, and he hasn't really had that kind of like exciting character growth that you would see in a character in that silo, like a Vegeta has a great arc over Dragon Ball Z, or even Kaiba has a pretty good arc, or characters like that kind of grow to understand that they don't have to be as much of a dick and they can do the right thing, but he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that at all.
It's bad. It's really bad. It's now thinking about it, having it played at least 7 or 8 hours of this game. I want you to tell me who Shadow is. Just tell me who Shadow is. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to choose who Shadow is because he was in a previous game, 2 previous games, apparently. Like, tell me who he is. Like, don't have this, like, huge mystery surrounding. By the way, we didn't even mention he's an amnesiac, which is like, they're basically, it's just a clean slate. Like, you can do whatever you want.
Check it off on the video game cliche box. That's amnesia. Perfect.
So it's so frustrating because even if you do 11 playthroughs of this game, I don't know, maybe it's just me, I wouldn't be able to put all that fucking tangled mess together to be like, okay, I know who Shadow is now.
Mm-hmm.
Because every single storyline tells you something completely different. Like, you're discouraged from playing any other routes other than the real true route. Like, any deviation from whatever path you choose can introduce a plot element that has no impact on another plot element from a different route. Because that stuff is just, it's immediately dropped. And it actually has nothing to do with the actual true story of the game.
Right.
But then if you just go on the true path, you're also not really given context for some of the other like small plot elements and the other, I almost said timelines. Same thing. Timelines that are just said through like one line of text, which they could have just put in the true storyline. I'm starting to confuse myself here. So at the end of the day, I'm just being like, you should have just done one fucking thing and settled on it.
Right.
Like, we don't need these branching story paths or anything like this is fucking Star Fox or something. It doesn't work. Like, the game wants you to get out a whiteboard like Pepe Silva and start connecting the dots and stuff. Like, I don't want to do that. It's Shadow the Hedgehog. They could have just told a straightforward story, and I don't know if that would have saved the game because, boy, there are other problems with this game. But, like, at least I could have gone with it. I was, I knew what I was getting into. I knew I was playing a Sonic adjacent game. So, I came at it with an open mind. And again, I have like this, I'm intrigued by like really weird, dumb stuff. I love Strangers of Paradise. I thought this was going to be on the level of a Strangers of Paradise, and it's not. But
at least Strangers of Paradise is playable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, this is just, it's bad. And it's one of those two, like, there's just plot holes all over the place. Like, he's an amnesiac, but he knows who the fuck Sonic is. He doesn't know who he is. Shadow's like, Shadow the Hedgehog. Oh, why does that name sound familiar? And then like
selective amnesia.
Sonic shows up. He's like, hey, what's up, buddy? And he's like, oh, long time no see. This, or I don't even know if he was like, this guy again. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. And Shadow's the ultimate life form. He wouldn't give a shit about anything.
Right. Because that's cool.
Right. Like, that's the coolest part. But apparently he cares a lot.
Yeah. We're starting to touch on some plot stuff, so we can move fully into plot. I just have like one kind of last general thing.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, because I just know we're going to go in a million directions with this as we try to make sense.
You could say this is one of our branching paths.
Yes, this could be the hero or the dark path. You choose. You decide. Maybe I'll edit it all together like that. I don't know. If I did, the hero path would be very short as of right now. But I just, going back to why they made the decisions for this game, why they made the decisions they did, why they chose to make this like super edgy, almost to the point of like just like cringe-inducing cliche. And I mean, I understand they picked a theme, they picked an idea, and they committed to it, and they committed to it really hard, and they had a vision, and they executed on that vision. So like, I get it. When you're doing a creative endeavor, when you're doing a project like that, you have to commit to the vision. If your vision is to make Sonic the Hedgehog more edgy, I mean, I commend you for like sticking to that vision and at least trying it. But like, I really, it more confuses me. Like, there's laughter and then there's confusion, because when you see the opening cutscene of this game and see like Shadow the Hedgehog like loading the magazine into the gun and cocking it, and then like Sonic the Hedgehog is like collapsing in front of him.
By the way, I mean, I'm not a gun owner or anything like that, but I am an American. Shadow the Hedgehog has like an AK-47 and cocks it like it's a shotgun, and that's not how that works.
It's the most like confusing gun I've ever seen, and I've shot enough of them to know that that's not how that works. Maybe it does in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, but you see that opening cutscene, and it gives me such I think cognitive dissonance is the word when I think about it, because Sonic is already positioned as like this, like the cooler Mario, and he's supposed to be cool and sassy and like kind of fill that niche, and that's kind of the lane he's existed in for like 10 years at this point, since the early 90s. So to try and do this and push it even further to the point of where it's like edgy and we want to be like on the boundary of whatever they are trying to be on the boundary of, I feel like it's almost more insulting than it is cringy, especially if you are a Sonic fan, because you already have like, and there's been stuff. It's not like even the guns by itself is not the inherent problem, because it was established in Sonic Adventure that this world has guns, because like the opening cutscene is like the police shooting chaos. And
shooting a puddle of water.
Yes, exactly. So like there are guns in this game, and like Dr. Robotnik's robots like shoot projectiles and stuff. So like that's not even
it's
the
like
main issue.
It's like seeing Mario with a gun. Like, it just doesn't feel right. And to see Shadow like this anthropomorphic cartoon character with a realistic looking gun, which, by the way, I mean, some of the other guns in this game look like fucking Nerf guns. They look absolutely ridiculous. It looks like the gun, and then one looks like a fucking Beretta. Like the handgun looks like an actual handgun. It's very inconsistent, but I think it's just that juxtaposition of something that you are usually associating with danger and like aggressiveness with a cartoon character. Which is, I mean, hey, look at Pal World, right? It can be a selling point. And also, like, man, God bless them. People love Shadow, like, as a character. They do. They do love Shadow. People love Shadow. I don't know if they like this game, but I mean, yeah, you could say that it kind of seems like a slap in the face to Sonic the Hedgehog as a character, but I don't know. I guess I don't really want to talk about story stuff right now. And again, I haven't played SA2, so who knows? I don't know if that little girl is Shadow the Hedgehog's girlfriend, which is very strange. But I people love Shadow the Hedgehog, so I don't know if I could fully, maybe I just don't fully understand where you're coming from exactly, but I kind of get it. It just seems like overkill because they had Sonic, then they had Knuckles, and now they have Shadow, and then Silver is later. It's just like, oh man, Silver, like, oh fuck, he's silver. It's better than black. And then I don't know. It's like, I don't know where you go from there. Gold. Is there? Oh wait, no, there's Supersonic already, right? Anyway, I'm just talking out of my ass at this point.
Yeah. Well, no, the point I was trying to make is, and I have no problem with like Shadow as a character. Like, I don't have any problem that he exists. I don't have any problem for the reason that he does exist. But I just feel like this game does him such an injustice because they chose this game and him to be this vessel through which they wanted to be more edgy. And that is, I feel like they just walked into the boardroom, their meeting, their giant conference table, wrote edgy on the whiteboard and circled it. And that was the entire guiding principle of the entire game. I mean, look at everything that they put in this game. It's like, oh, we gave Shadow a gun. Oh, in the opening cutscene, did he kill Sonic? Oh, that's super edgy. Oh, look, there are demons that come out of the sky. That's super edgy. Oh, look, Shadow the Hedgehog swears now. That's super edgy. And all the dialogue that they shove down Shadow's throat to try and make him sound edgy, like he says hell and damn, and this is like taking candy from a baby, which I approve of, or something like that. And it's just, just like, I'm like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this?
You know what? This is the perfect opportunity. And I said I had something lined up for your show here because we're talking about all the bad one-liners. This is something I do on my show when I have guests on. This is a game I would like to call Last Action Hedgehog. Eric, all I need you to do, I'm going to just rattle off some lines real quick. I don't want to take up too much time. I just need you to tell me if this is a line from a bad action movie or a line from Shadow the Hedgehog.
Oh, God. I don't know if it's going to be possible.
You already said one of them. This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
Yeah.
That is from the game. The next line I have here is, too bad, you will die.
That's an action movie.
Yeah, that is from Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Okay.
Lock and loaded. Goodbye, Doctor.
That is Shadow.
Yeah, you got it. I'm going to take you to the bank. The blood bank.
That's an action movie.
Yeah, it's from Hard to Kill.
For sure.
Pain don't hurt.
I'm going to say action movie because Shadow doesn't talk. Shadow at least talks proper English.
Well, it's not. These aren't all lines from Shadow specifically.
Oh, okay.
Just from the game, period.
Oh, okay. Paint. I will go with. I'll say action movie for that one.
Yeah, Roadhouse.
Okay.
We just came to have a good time. You're too stupid to have a good time.
That's action movie.
Yeah, that's also from Roadhouse. Nice. If you haven't seen Roadhouse, you should watch it.
It's good.
Embrace the dawn of your demise and despair.
That's Shadow.
Yes.
Oh, I'm good at this edgy stuff, man.
No one can tell me what to do.
That could be vague. Either. Yeah, I'm going to go Shadow.
It is Shadow.
Yeah, because I know one of the plot endings. So I'm reaching in my bag of Shadow lore to answer that question.
And the final one I got here is Dead or Alive, You're Coming With Me.
That's action movie.
Yeah, it's from RoboCop. Damn, Eric.
I think I went 10 for 10 on that.
Yeah, you did.
How come I can't ever do this good when I'm on your show for the games? I mean, come on.
But, something tells me you played a lot more Shadow the Hedgehog than I did.
I watched a lot of compilations and,
that makes sense.
Story bits, I think, probably. So, but again, like I said, I think the game's main premise was to be edgy, and I don't think that's necessarily fair to Shadow or Sonic as a character. I mean, God bless them for having a guiding principle during design, and they set out to, whether this was accomplished the direction they wanted to go, I don't know, but they did it. And I don't agree with it. I think it's
that the whole point of that whole line thing is just to like show like just how hard they tried. Like
yeah,
it's pretty awful, but
right. And like I said, I don't know. We can sit here talking about like just about that stuff the whole time, but we started touching on some plot stuff, so I'll toss in music here and then we'll start talking about the plot specifically. All right, welcome back after that incredible butt rock music break that I just inserted into the episode there. We're going to talk about the plot of Shadow the Hedgehog, and we've kind of already touched on a lot of some of the major points of the story. So I didn't do it super in depth. For those of you that are expecting a Kingdom Hearts-like breakdown of the story, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not doing that for this. I'm just going to hit the bullet points. So like Keith mentioned earlier, the game basically starts off, hits the ground running. Shadow has amnesia, and he doesn't remember his past. He doesn't remember where he comes from. The story is allegedly a continuation of the plot points that were revealed in Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes, which I will touch on a little bit when we talk about some of that stuff. I don't know, Keith. The pacing of this game is so weird because the game starts off and Shadow is standing on a hill and he's inner monologuing to himself about Shadow the Hedgehog. What does that name mean? I don't know who I am. And literally, he's monologuing to himself like about his amnesia. And then all of a sudden, the sky turns like blood red, and alien demons start coming out of the sky. And this is like all within 30 seconds of the game starting. And then we see the titular character, the antagonist Black Doom, come and basically tell Shadow, "Hey, I know about your past. If you want to know about it, collect the Chaos Emeralds and come find me." And that is the catalyst, that is the starting point of the entire story for Shadow the Hedgehog. And before Black Doom comes to him, Shadow, because he's very ambivalent towards everything, the demons start coming down and attacking the city. And Shadow's like, "I don't have time for these humans," and is just going to walk away because he's so ambivalent towards good and evil. He's out for himself, and he has amnesia. So that's the whole like setup for the entire plot of the story, which I just find like we get so many things happen in that span where we learn Shadow has amnesia. We learn a little bit about his character. The demons fall from the sky. Black Doom comes and tells Shadow that he knows about his past and collect the Chaos Emeralds. And then we're off into the first level. So
yeah,
that's the start.
I don't want to reiterate some of the stuff I've already said about the plot and how messy that is. But I will say, like, I think like verbatim after Black Doom, who gives a shit? After he shows up, Shadow, I think verbatim, the line was like, "Well, he seems like he knows what he's talking about, so I better get to it."
Right.
It's like, what?
I think he says something like, "He seems to know about my past, so that means I have to trust him." Like just like that. Just demon devil guy comes out of the sky, tells you that he can tell you about your past, and you just believe him.
And the thing too is, I feel like the game designers want you to go down the dark path because there isn't any interaction with any of the hero characters aside from them just yelling at you during gameplay. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's some cutscenes here and there, but right off the bat, I mean, you're not introducing like, this tug of morality right away. It's just go do Shadow, go fuck some shit up. And then it's like, all right, we're going to have to go fuck shit up. And then all of a sudden Sonic is just like, "Hey there, pal. Oh, don't hurt the troops." It's like, that's the interaction with the hero characters right away. Where it's just like, "No, you're supposed to be a good guy," but it's like, I don't know. Like, I was just told to be a bad guy. And I mean, the whole morality system in this game is bullshit. It's almost non-existent.
Right. So I'm glad you touched on that because yes, once you run off, you have the intro stage, which is Westopolis, I believe, generic city being destroyed level. Which
you have to play 11 times, by the way.
Yes, which if you want to get all the endings in the true ending, you have to play
the same couple of levels 11 times.
11 times, which is brutal. And some of these levels are designed BS, but we'll touch on that, I'm sure. So you get into Westopolis, and the way the game works is there's a branching mission structure, basically. So each mission you play in the game has 3 possible outcomes you can achieve. You can achieve the neutral outcome, which is just race to the end of the stage and get the Chaos Emerald. You can achieve the dark mission, which is usually like something that's evil, like kill the soldiers or whatever objective Black Doom wants you to achieve. Or the hero path is usually helping the hero character in the stage. So like Sonic or Knuckles or whoever that is. Sometimes the hero path is Eggman, which is insane to me. So yeah, every stage has this kind of branching mission structure, and depending on what mission you choose to complete in each stage, it leads you kind of down this like choose your own adventure path. And I think there are 6 stages in the game, and depending on what path you take, you get one of 10 endings that I'll break down here in a second. So it's clear. Obviously, Shadow having amnesia, they want to set this up so that you, the player, have some agency as to the type of character that Shadow is. I don't think this works at all. And what are your thoughts, Keith, about the branching, the mission structure that also serves as like the morality system for Shadow?
I mean, I don't want to like I said, I don't want to reiterate too much of what I think I jumped the gun on that, but I mean, yeah, none of it works because so many plot threads are dropped from path to path that they just don't come up again. Like there's one path I took where Shadow was like, "Oh, I'm a robot," and then I somehow dipped off of that path. Well, I shouldn't say I know what happened. I accidentally died or did fucking something. The game fucked. I don't know what happened. This game is a mess. I dipped off that path, and then suddenly like Shadow's talking about becoming the ultimate being, and I'm like, but are you still a robot? Like, I don't.
Right.
And it just is never brought up again.
Right.
And so that's like just an example of just how messy the game is, because it's like, well, this plot thread belongs in another timeline, but has no bearing on like the other 3 or 4 levels I just played. So it's just extremely jarring if you don't stay on the same path, which is difficult sometimes because this game plays like shit, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Right.
So yeah, it's bad. Like I said, at the start of the game, they tell you to go do hood rat stuff, but then in every stage, you're also followed by a hero. So, you know, the first stage you got Sonic, the next stage, I guess depending on how you go, you get like Knuckles or something, or Tails. And that's just kind of it. Like, you're just like, they're the good guys, so you're just supposed to do good stuff. It seems like they just wanted to flesh out the evil side of things a lot more than the heroes, because again, I guess they're going for the edginess and stuff like that. And it's very fucking messy. And like I said, I played this game, and completed it 2.5 times. I just dropped that half time. I was just fucking done. I was over it. So I just did not want to play anymore. So, and at the end of it, I'm just like, I don't know what these endings mean. They end very abruptly. Very abruptly. I intentionally was going for the dark path my first playthrough. And I don't exactly remember what happened, but I got bumped off of that path. And then the second time, I was like, well, I'm going to go for the hero path. And I got very, very far in, and something happened where the game was doing one of its like on rails sections. And because I was on rails, the game just shot me right to the goal line without me finishing the mission. So then that bucked me off the fucking hero path. And so like I think it was like the last level too. And then the other time I was like, well, I'm going to go for the dark path again because that one went astray pretty quickly. And there's one level, we'll get to it. I couldn't do it twice. I just could not do it twice.
Yeah, we'll touch on that, but I agree with what you said because spoiler alert, depending on what you can complete any mission. So if you're going down the dark path, you could decide to have a heel turn at the very last stage and do the hero mission and get a little less evil ending than you would have if you like had all the dark missions completed. There are 326 possible paths through the game, depending on which missions you choose to complete in each stage. 326 possible different stage route mission combinations to get to the 11 endings, which is absolutely insane. And
there are many paths you can take in life, and
true,
one of them is not to do that.
Yes, listen, if you're out there, you stumble across this episode, if you've played all 326 paths, please call me. I want to ask you some questions. Physically, purely scientific. Please give me a call.
Have you ever sponsored your show through BetterHelp? Because this might be a good episode to do. This might be
the one I have to. Yeah, I might reach out to them. But what Keith says is 100% true because the path that I played through, and I was not going to subject myself to this game more than one time. I did the neutral mission out of Westopolis because the first mission in Westopolis is you either have to, for the neutral mission, you just finish it. The good mission with Sonic is you kill all the aliens, or the bad mission is you kill all the gun soldiers. And in a lot of the stages when you have the kill the enemy missions, you have to kill every single enemy. You have to find every single enemy in the stage. If you miss just one, like that's it. And some of those stages are like super confusing and just it's a pain in the butt to have to do that. So I think I did the neutral mission on Westopolis and was on the neutral path. And then the second stage, I believe, was with Knuckles. And that was like a temple stage where I could either find something or I had to activate like all the switches for the dark path. And I think I activated all the switches for the dark path. And that caused the temple to like fly, and it was like this flying fortress for Black Doom and his alien army, because he was all jazzed about it. He was like, yeah, this temple's like a flying fortress. And the very next stage is the flying fortress is fighting Eggman's fleet, and the dark path is to either destroy Eggman's fleet, or the hero path is to help Eggman turn the switches and crash the temple into the ground. And I did the hero path. I helped Eggman crash the temple into the ground. So within those first three missions, I went neutral, and then I helped Black Doom, and then I went against Black Doom. And the cutscenes you get for like jumping back and forth makes it super jarring because they don't line up and they're not conducive to you jumping like paths around like that. It wants you to kind of pick one and stick to it. So if you do kind of jump around like that, you get this like really disjointed story where if you're trying to do a choose your own Shadow adventure, you get certain points where he's helping Black Doom, certain points where he's like fighting against him, but like Black Doom isn't commenting on like, hey, why did you just help me and then fuck me over like the next stage, which I guess you could be cute and say like, oh, it's Shadow's inner struggle within himself to like do the right thing. But that's kind of, I think that's kind of like flimsy. Yeah. And it almost feels like Shadow is just this avatar and it's just a tug of war between Black Doom and the hero characters to try and like get him to do what they want him to do. And he doesn't really have an agency of his own.
No.
Unless he just like neutrally gets all the Chaos Emeralds. But I mean, it's just, yeah, it's from like choose your own adventure morality system, like mission path. It's not good, especially when you have a character that even Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes kind of leaves Shadow as this ambivalent character that doesn't have any of his own agency, and he's not getting any of his own agency in this game, really.
Well, I think one of the, and it's a late reveal, is that Shadow is made by the blood of Black Doom.
Yes.
And so that's kind of like the glue that's supposed to hold the story together, but you don't get that if you if you play through the game casually. And to your point, like if you do try and stick to one path, it's very hard to do. Like this game is tedious as hell. Like I understand what they're going for. They're trying to really pad the game out, make it worth your playtime. 7 stages, way too short. I understand. I get it. But like the stuff you have to do to be able to stay on those paths, like the light side missions they're different. Like the light side missions, they switch them up between stages, which I appreciate. The Tails mission is incredibly brutal, but the dark side stuff is like you said, like most of the time it's the same fucking thing where you just kill all the humans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And it's just, I don't know.
So do you want to, I actually wrote down all the endings. Do you want to hear all the various endings? I can list them off.
Yeah, man, go ahead. Because again, like I said, it's some of them just end abruptly.
Yes.
The 2 endings I got were just, the game ended. I'm like, oh, okay.
So as we've said multiple times, there are 10 endings to this game, and you have to play all 10 of them. And you take the branching paths to get to the different endings.
Oh my god, pure dark ending.
Yes. So this is how this is how one thread I saw I classified the endings. But there are 10 fucking endings to this game, and all these endings are super abrupt, and most of them end with Shadow discovering some kind of truth about himself and declaring, "This is who I am." And that's how it ends. That's just how it ends. Credits roll. So yeah, if you only play this game once, it's very, very confusing, very abrupt ending. But yeah, so if you go pure darkness, there's the pure dark ending. And this is where Shadow declares his intent to use the power of the Chaos Emeralds to destroy the planet. There's the almost pure dark ending where Shadow declares that he'll use the Chaos Emeralds to conquer the universe. He becomes like a truly antagonistic force, like a villain in the Sonic world, essentially.
Why is that almost pure dark? I feel like that should be the pure dark ending.
Listen, it gets worse because I think there's a neutral ending that's worse than the dark endings, but that's fine.
Okay.
There's the mostly dark ending, which is Black Doom's plan succeeds as the plan essentially the story is that Black Doom plotted with Eggman's grandfather, Gerald Robotnik, to make Shadow, and Shadow swears loyalty to Black Doom. That's the mostly dark ending. The less mostly dark ending.
Jesus Christ, this is like the pain chart on doctors.
Yes, it's like 1 to 10. Shadow declares, "I am Shadow the Hedgehog, and only I know what is best. No one can tell me what to do. This is who I am." And so Shadow, basically like an angsty teenager, goes against all authority, and he decides what he wants to do.
I think that's the one of them that I got.
Okay. There's the neutral dark ending, where Eggman convinces Shadow that he's an android, but it doesn't win Shadow over to Eggman's side as he intended. Rather, Shadow becomes fixated with hunting down and punishing his creator, and he also says that even though he's a copy, he'll use the emeralds to surpass the original Shadow. So that's like where the android ending comes in, where Shadow is like an android. The neutral good ending, which this is insane to me, Shadow is convinced he's an android once again, and at the urging of Omega, you finish the story with Omega and you get this ending, he declares himself the new ruler of like the Eggman Empire, and then he fucking kills Eggman. Like straight up kills him. Like you hear like a karate chop sound.
Sonic hasn't.
Dude, you hear like a karate chop sound, and then Eggman goes like, "No!" And then like that's it. And so I'm like, that's the neutral good ending, is he fucking kills Dr. Eggman? Like, he murders him. That's insane.
There's a line where he's like, I'm about to do what Sonic should have done a long time ago.
Yes, it's insane. So, yeah, neutral good ending is he kills Eggman. The less mostly hero ending is that Shadow is determined to live on as proof of Professor Gerald's life work. He banishes Eggman from the Ark, which is like the space colony space station floating around the planet. And he declares to live there in solitude to protect it. The mostly hero ending, Shadow gets super emo here, and he says, he's like, "I'm an experiment that went deadly wrong. I'm a mistake. I should never have been created." And he just mopes away, and it's funny because like Vector, the fucking crocodile, is there trying to comfort him, and it's like, it's Vector. Like, what are we doing here with this ending? The almost pure hero ending, he basically declares himself Sonic's rival by declaring that he is the ultimate hedgehog.
That's the other one I got.
Okay. And then the pure hero ending is Shadow decides to keep his promise to Maria to give them a chance to be happy, i.e. protect the humans, use the emeralds to destroy Black Doom and his army. So those are like the different various endings that you can get. And if you get all those endings, you then get the true final ending, which means you need to do a minimum of like 11 playthroughs of the game, I think, to get this, which is insane. So after Shadow gathers all of the Chaos Emeralds, Black Doom takes them and uses the Chaos control power to bring the Black Comet to Earth, and it paralyzes everybody except Shadow. And this is where Black Doom reveals that Shadow is the creation using his blood, which meant that Black Doom would have been there during the events of Sonic Adventure 2, because that's when it was revealed that Professor Gerald, Eggman's grandfather, created Shadow. And that's kind of what it's implying here. And it also kind of implies that Professor Gerald created the Ark and its like giant fuck you cannon to destroy the comet. And this is where Black Doom turns into Devil Doom, and Shadow uses the Chaos Emeralds to turn into Super Shadow and defeat Devil Doom. And during the course of the fight, Eggman reveals to Shadow that he's not an android, but he's the original Shadow, because Eggman figures that out somehow in this game.
Wait, so is the Shadow the Hedgehog in Sonic Adventure 2 an android?
No, he's the real thing. I'll get to that. Hold on, I'll get to that. So after the fight with Devil Doom, Shadow's seen on the Ark holding the picture of Maria, who was Gerald's granddaughter and was like Shadow's only real friend when he was like an experiment or whatever. And she got murdered by gun is one of the plot points. So that's why Shadow was like, oh, humanity's awful. After they beat Devil Doom, he's seen on the Ark holding that picture, and he says, "Goodbye, Shadow the Hedgehog," and he tosses the picture aside and he walks away because, Keith, he's discarding his past to forge a new path. He's so cool. So now he can truly be whoever he wants to be.
I've got so many fucking questions about that true ending. First of all, I mean, the human characters in the Sonic games have never looked good. I don't care what anybody says. Maria looks like Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
I don't understand what is with this 1930s golden age of Disney design for this little girl. It's fucking weird. Also, is Shadow... Are there relations? Like, what is what is the relationship here? Because
they're just friends.
Weird.
Like they're like friends in like captivity. I think.
Well,
it's like that story trope where like Maria
Stockholm
teaches
syndrome.
Shadow. Yeah, maybe. It's that story trope where Maria is teaching Shadow to be like human, right? Like she represents like the humanity. Oh my god, I'm analyzing the story of Shadow
only
the Hedgehog.
You can.
Yeah. She's like represents like the humanity of Shadow, right? And she instills in him to like,
I didn't get that at all from this game, by the way.
Even I did the Sonic Adventure 2 research, so there's a little bit of stuff in there too with it. She instills in him that like he ultimately remembers that she wants him to be a force for good and protect the humans and not destroy them. And the reason Shadow still has like this amnesia, even though we kind of get some of this story in Sonic Adventure 2, is because at the end of Adventure 2, after Shadow and Sonic go Super Saiyan and fight whatever the thing is in space, Shadow like plummets to the Earth, like through the atmosphere from outer space. And it's alleged that like he died. But in Sonic Heroes, Rouge finds him in Eggman's lab, like underground, and frees him, and he doesn't remember like what happened to him, and that doesn't get resolved through Sonic Heroes, so they try to resolve it here in Shadow the Hedgehog. That's the Cliff Notes version of the Shadow the Hedgehog arc through these 3 games.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? Do you have any questions?
I don't know if we have time for any of them.
Okay.
I really don't. Because it's just Gunn murdered Maria, yes?
Yes, because they raided the Ark because they didn't like what Professor Gerald was doing, in my understanding. And in Sonic Adventure 2, Professor Gerald tries to like kill all of humanity. Like he sets up like a failsafe to like cause the Ark to crash into Earth because Gunn killed his granddaughter. But Maria didn't approve of the experiments her grandfather was doing, so she wanted Shadow to like save the humans and be like a force for good for the humans.
But aren't you actively working with Gunn in the hero branch of the game?
Listen, maybe.
Because that seems trying to kill you the entire game.
Yeah, and not to mention too, there's a cutscene.
Sonic is like, throughout the entire game, Sonic's like, whoa, don't kill those guys.
Right.
They're the good guys. Yeah, so.
And there's even a scene where like the president has a picture of Sonic and Shadow on his
they're
desk.
Friends.
Yeah, it was like they saved the world one time. And it's
not like one of those photos where it's just like a portrait of them. It's like literally Sonic and Shadow hanging out with the president eating chili dogs and shit. Like it's a very personal photo. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. And so yeah, the stuff they try, at least based on my understanding, and again, I would have to deep dive it a lot more to connect all the stuff, but the stuff they try to retroactively insert into Shadow's past that they establish in Adventure 2 is just really, really difficult to square anything away happens with Shadow.
It sounds like SA2 had a very straightforward plot, whereas this one does not. And they maybe should have taken that.
And I watched the plot of SA2, and I didn't really have any major issues with it. There are some like glaring plot holes and stuff where I'm just like, well, why didn't they just do this? But
they should have taken the approach with this game. That's the same. They should have taken the same approach.
Yes, I agree, because I think the point Shadow has more of an arc in SA2, and the point where he arrives at the end of that game is more satisfying than where he is in this game, because if they just would have ended that game and he just like walked away and it was fine, like that would have been a great arc for him, or a decent arc in terms of as story arcs go in video games. But the fact that they made him fall to Earth through the atmosphere and like burn up, and then Eggman like saves him and puts him in storage and he has amnesia and all this other stuff. But even thinking about that, even going back to Sonic Adventure 2, like the stuff with Maria gets revealed, and Shadow's whole character is really only defined that he wants to do good because that's what Maria wants him to do, not because that's what he wants to do. So his entire character throughout all these games is defined by like what other people want him to do. He has no agency of his own.
But we're supposed to decide what his agency is, and then it ends up not actually mattering anyway.
No, because in the true ending, he decides to throw the picture away very symbolically of Maria.
It's almost like Shadow is giving us the middle finger at the end of the game.
Yes. And then they can go from there and do whatever they want with the character, because they're like, now he's a clean slate because he's let go of his past. But he was a clean
slate at the beginning of this game.
Yes, exactly.
And they didn't even bother to do anything with it.
Like I said, if you're analyzing the character of Shadow, he just doesn't have an arc across these three games, and you don't learn anything about him in this game, and he has no consistent character traits in this game because he's all over the place. And it all depends on what decisions you make. And even the 10 endings are all over the place because, like I said, the neutral good ending is he kills Eggman. And then the true ending is he just decides that he's going to let go of his past and live his own life from now on. I don't know. It's not a good plot. It's not a good plot, Keith.
No, you don't know. Yeah, you don't. I mean, I checked out of the plot after like the first ending. And then I was like, okay, this hero timeline, it seems like it's kind of okay. You know, I'm like I said, I came to it open-minded. I was giving it the benefit of the doubt the second playthrough. But then once I deviated from that, then I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what anybody's talking about anymore. Like, this doesn't line up.
No, it doesn't line up. I think we've probably done enough plot stuff, right? Do you have anything else you want to add or talk about the plot for?
Dude, no.
Okay.
No. I mean, I saw you also mixed in the boss fights with these endings here.
I didn't think it mattered. Doesn't matter what boss he fights when.
I mean, I think it segues great into gameplay because the boss fights fucking suck.
That's a great segue into gameplay. And I know you had some stuff you wanted to talk about gameplay, Keith. So, Keith, what are your thoughts on the gameplay?
Oh, man. So you know how, like, ice levels and ice physics are, like, the best thing to be in gaming? You know, don't you just love, like, ice physics in video games, Eric?
That's what everybody says. It's their favorite part. Yeah,
same. What if you could have an entire game that's ice physics? That's what Shadow the Hedgehog is. There's no acceleration. He's 0 to 100 instantly. The homing attack is probably the worst it has ever been, and I will only say that because I've only played one other 3D Sonic game in which it was okay. It was fine. And then on top of that, the camera is awful. Just horrible. So I almost never knew where I was going until I knew that I was going over a cliff and dying. And then he goes, damn, not again. It's like, you know, yes, again, Shadow, I'm sorry. Platforming, I mean, the fact that it won an award for best platformer, it's just, listen, I will say if I gotta say something positive about this game, it's cool that Shadow can grab onto ledges if, like, you just miss. That was kind of cool. I didn't expect that. I guess what I should have expected was that it wasn't reliable. So, I mean, I have no idea what triggers that animation at all, because it didn't happen all the time. Man, what else do I have to complain about? The level design is fucking god awful. This game does what I hate about Sonic Adventure, where it's like it wants you to explore each level as if it had the immaculate design of a Mario game. But Shadow just controls like shit. So I would have to take like fucking Ambien to calm my nerves before I could actually do any type of like exploring in this game, because I knew something was going to go wrong, and it almost always did. So it was very hard for me to get up the courage to actually do any type of exploring to find the 10 aliens I needed to kill, because God forbid if I miss one, I'm going to have to go back to a checkpoint. The constant banter of the heroes and fake Frank Welker in the levels is a lot. We already I kind of talked about the light side missions and the dark side missions. They're incredibly tedious. They suck. And the fact that you have to reset the game and you have to replay those first few stages 4 or 5 times sucks. It sucks. Westopolis, kind of a cool stage, I'll admit. Like all the aliens coming down and the lasers and shit coming from space or whatever the fuck that is. Whatever. It's a cool action set piece, but I didn't want to play it more than 2 times.
Certainly not 10.
What else can I bitch about?
You said you had a specific stage that you wanted to specifically. Do you remember?
Yes. So Shadow hacks into the internet, and this was during my...
That's a 2005 concept.
Right. He hacks into the internet, and at first I was like, this is kind of a cool fucking stage. Like, I like the concept. It feels very fast. It feels like a good Sonic level. If you're doing the hero mission. If you're doing the dark side mission, you have to set off, I think it's like 25. I think it's more than that. I think it might be like 35 bombs or something.
Oh my God.
And I think I might have sent you, because the paths you have to take are not linear towards these bombs. It's an incredibly confusing, very detailed map, and it's very easy to get lost and lose exactly like where you are. And I'm like, somebody did the math. Somebody out there, it's been almost 20 years. Somebody had to have mapped this stage out. Sure enough. And I think I sent it to you in our private chat.
That's what that was.
Yeah. And I was like, if you know what this is, then you know.
Oh my God.
I had to follow that map. I had it on my phone. And as I was traveling through the stage, I also had to turn the phone to make sure I was like in the right spot. And because Shadow moves so quickly through the stage, which is normally a good thing because it's supposed to be kind of a Sonic adjacent game, not a good thing here when you're trying to defuse all these bombs, because he can take a turn so quick that you'll be left off of the path you were supposed to be on and have to go all the way back around again. I would have to pause the game, start it, pause again, start it, pause, as I'm making sure to take the correct like turn that I need to take. It's so fucking, it's insane game design. Like, if you get to this stage on the dark path and you're like, fuck this, I don't blame you, because the second time I tried to do it and I pulled up that map, like I was like, you know, about to have a jerk off session that I was going to regret later. I just looked at that map and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this, and I'm not going to do it. And that's when I stopped playing the game.
Would that perhaps be Mad Matrix?
That's it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wrote down all the level names. That seems, yeah, you sent me that map and I couldn't really process like all the shapes and stuff I was looking at. So I'm glad that I didn't have to play that one, because I probably would have experienced a similar.
It looks like the bottom
thing.
of like looks like the bottom of a Skechers shoe. That's what that map looks like.
You heard it here first, folks. I agree with you on pretty much every point. I don't really have anything that I could, you know, I wanna be positive about it, but I really can't. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the ice physics, because the example that I came up with of the way Shadow controls is a little more R-rated. I said it feels like if you just dunked Shadow in like a 50-gallon drum of lube and like threw him out on the stage. And he's so slippery. I've never, ever controlled a video game character that's just as loose as Shadow the Hedgehog. Like you said, he accelerates to top speed in literally no time, and then just can take a 90-degree turn like that. It's baffling to me. Why does he have hover rollerblades on?
I don't know what the fuck those are.
What are they?
I called them Heelys at the beginning of the episode.
They might be, but like, why does he have to skate? I mean, you could just have him run like Sonic. I think he looks stupid skating like that.
He's supposed to be the ultimate life form. Like, why does he need like enhanced Jordans?
Why does he look like he's spending Wednesday night at the roller disco? I don't know.
Get it.
So, but he's fast, and it's really annoying because his controls, like, they just needed to tighten up the controls.
Mm-hmm.
Probably like because I know game design, go into the control setting and just dial up control to 80%, and that's fixed. Mm-hmm. No problem. You fix it right there. It might be marginally better.
Another easy thing that they could have done to fix this is, once you complete a playthrough, maybe you're able to select a level and start from that level and redirect your path instead of restarting the entire fucking game over again.
Yeah, because that really sucks if you're on a path and then you accidentally mess up the path, especially if you're going for all the endings.
Right. There's already a gallery where you can watch God bless you if you want to watch all the cutscenes again of the levels that you completed. So that's already there. So it's like, if I need to catch up on the plot, I'll do that. And then, just let me start off where I messed up, or I'm not even messed up, but in my case, I messed up a lot because of how poor this game plays. And, just let me start off at a level. Let me select a stage. I would have appreciated that a lot more. I probably would have stuck it out with this game.
I probably would have at least like played every stage.
Sure. Yeah.
At least. Yeah. If I could select them. Going back to Shadow's movement, this also affects the main mechanic of the game that they advertise so heavily on the front of the box and the cutscene is the guns. So there's no mechanism in the game by which Shadow is able to aim your firearm or whatever weapon you have. And so you're basically left just like lining him up old school style with the enemy on whatever path you're on and just shooting forward and hoping that works. The only problem is Shadow's so damn touchy that any little adjustment on the joystick will like put you off aim drastically. You won't even be shooting at the right thing. And that's really unfortunate because guns are actually stronger than the homing attack in this game. Like guns are very powerful.
Well, the homing attack is so fucking inconsistent. Like,
I agree with you. I agree with you on that too, because I know you and I both played Sonic Adventure this year, and I felt like, that game has its gameplay problems, but I felt like the homing attack, even in Sonic Adventure, was more consistent.
Yeah.
Than it was in Shadow. Like Shadows, I could not trust the homing attack to home. The main word in its name, I couldn't trust it. Like if I wanted to hit 3 enemies, I wasn't even comfortable like using the homing attack to like cross a ledge, or like if there was a narrow path and there were 3 enemies across it. Usually if I homing attacked once and then I went to homing attack the one off to the side, I would just shoot past it and go off the edge and die.
Yeah, 100%. Like combined with the camera, like the camera will either move at the last second, like really kind of messing with your sense of space, or it won't move at all, and you'll just like go flying off an edge or whatever. It
feels like it's a weird combination of Shadow needing to be lined up properly and the camera kind of needing to face the right direction. It's really weird. It's
almost like a fake twin stick shooter.
Yes, almost. Almost.
But that's also like, that would be praising the gameplay.
True. But I always felt like Sonic's homing attack should be like reliable, and Shadow's it's not. I dreaded every time I had to use the homing attack for anything.
And
so by that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to your point, like with the guns, the gun mechanic, it's almost to the point where you almost always have to use one. I know in my hero path, like I was always just using a gun because all the aliens have guns, and I knew I was going to get a ton of ammunition. But like, it's just the way I played it was just, I wasn't holding forward on, the control stick like I would in Sonic Adventure or anything like that. I was just very lightly tapping the stick forward so that Shadow wouldn't go too fucking crazy, and then I could still aim with the gun, which is like, it's a fucking fun way to play a Sonic game. Like, it's just like, if you wanted this to be more of a methodical shooting game, like, don't make this motherfucker skate around like he's on ice skates. Like, I don't understand.
Right. If your main premise of your game, or one of your main premises of your game, is that there is a gun in it to shoot, you have to make it fun and enjoyable to shoot.
Zelda figured it out in 1996.
Yes. Although that's a little clunky today, I would argue. But
still,
yes, I would say that
had not been a brand new thing or anything like that. It's 2005.
No, and I don't feel like it would have been that hard to implement into something like this, even just for like the aiming. Or even just like hold one of the shoulder buttons and it locks Shadow in place and you can aim like a reticule or something.
A Z button on the GameCube controller, for fuck's sake. I don't even think it does anything.
And at this point, we had the DualShock controller for the PS2. So, I mean,
R3.
We had the
L3.
Yeah.
Right.
So we had thumbsticks, we had extra shoulder buttons. So it was like, what are we doing here? What?
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't understand. It's just a long adds to the long list of things that I just do not understand about this game. So those are my primary gripes about the gameplay, is just the way Shadow plays in general, and that just infects everything. It infects the platforming, exploring the levels, the boss fights, which I don't even have to go in depth with the boss fights, but
oh my god,
I don't feel like boss fights has ever been Sonic's strong suit ever. I've never felt overwhelmed or challenged or in awe of a boss fight in a Sonic game that I've played, and I've effectively doubled the number of Sonic games that I've played this year.
The thing I hate about this game in particular is that the boss fights are so vague. Like, some of them are like, am I supposed to shoot? Because of the tools at Shadow's disposal, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do. And there's this one fight in particular, for one of the endings, that has Sonic in it, and like, I wasn't sure if Sonic was also part of the boss fight. Like, I'm like, are you friend or foe? Because he was hurting me. Sonic would periodically hurt me while the boss was also hurting me. But then I also figured out, because I had to look it up because I had no idea what they wanted me to do. There was, like, for once, no dialogue except for, like, I don't know who it was. I think I was fighting the president. I don't remember, but either way, the president,
checks out.
The president is like in a giant mech or whatever, and he just keeps repeating the same lines over and over again, like a typical Sonic villain. But I had no idea what to do, and I had to actually like jump off of Sonic. But also, again, there were times where that was inconsistent, and Sonic would also injure me. So I'm like, it's bad. It's the gameplay is so poor. This like screams rush job.
That's one thing I didn't look up for the development history, is how long it took them from like conception to completion to get this game out the door. I'm sure they had a deadline that they wanted to shove it out on, for sure. And then also about the boss fights too, just kind of looking back on, I wrote a lot of the ending boss fights for the different endings of the game. And for a game where I would argue that Black Doom is the primary antagonist, because he's revealed to be the ultimate villain, you fight Eggman in the endings way more times than you fight Black Doom. I think you fight Black Doom in like 2 of the endings, and then in the true ending, and then you fight Eggman like 5 or 6 times. Yeah, throughout the various endings, which is kind of crazy to me, because Eggman isn't necessarily set up to be like the real antagonist. Like Black Doom is, very clearly. Yeah. And you only fight him like twice unless you get the true ending. Yeah, I fought him one time, and it was actually I'll say I did enjoy that boss fight. The Black Doom boss fight that I had was not bad. Did you have the one where it was like the 6 kind of platforms in like this big open arena, and he kind of that wasn't bad. I would agree with that. I think Sonic was Sonic there too? I don't remember if Sonic was there too. Okay, maybe one of them he is there. I don't know, but I would argue, that one wasn't bad. All the other ones I saw is just like generic fighting a Eggman robot, or even like you said, he fights the president, and I think it's just like a mech. It's like a president in a mech or something. Which, talk about a man of action. That's who we need to lead the country. If my president isn't willing to get into a mech and fight like interdimensional beings, like, what are we doing with our elections? Could you just imagine Joe Biden in a mech stomping across country? I can, and it terrifies me. Either of those men in a mech would terrify me, I think, for sure. Let's get off politics. Yeah, right. But I don't think we have to sit here and like beat it over the head, just because we're also closing in on several hours talking about Shadow the Hedgehog. But it's Can you believe it? I know, not really. This is what you invited me here for. Yes. It's just not. It's not designed well, I feel, in any aspect. The Shadow doesn't control great. I don't think the level design, even if Shadow controlled better, I still think there's serious flaws with the level design. And you might be able to fix a lot of the gameplay issues by just fixing and tightening up the way that Shadow plays. Maybe I should ask Cade to see if someone would put out like a mod patch where like they just fix the way Shadow controls. Maybe he could find that for me. And then maybe this game would be like in kind of like a semi, because even, you know, we talked about Sonic Adventure again. Even though that Sonic Adventure has some stuff that is game breaking, I still felt like Sonic Adventure overall controlled better than Shadow the Hedgehog, a game that came out 6 years later on an equivalent system.
I'll say this too, to just kind of spin this in a more positive direction, in that I at least appreciate them for trying to do something different, like really trying to make him different from other Sonic characters.
Yes.
It just doesn't, like what they tried to do just doesn't work here. And I think if you do just make him just another Sonic, then it's too generic, but also at the same time, as we've been stating over and over again in this podcast, he's supposed to be like the antithesis of Sonic. So maybe he should be closer to Sonic than what we get here.
One other thing too, gameplay feature that we didn't touch on is he has two kind of like super bars that fill up during the mission. And depending on if you do either like hero stuff or dark stuff, you get like a power up. I think if you fill up the hero bar, you get the chaos control, which will zoom you through the stage. And then I think if you fill up the dark bar, you get a chaos control, which is just like a AoE explosion that like wipes all the enemies around you. So again, that kind of ties into your point. They tried to do different things with him and at least tie in some of the features to like is Shadow this dark evil creature or this good being, and kind of tied the gameplay into that as well. So like, you're right. They did have like a vision of what they wanted to do, and they tried to build all the game systems around chasing that vision, that idea of you deciding what Shadow is and what his moral stance is.
Dude, I was so mad the first time I used Chaos Control. I was so
Which one?
mad.
The one that flings you through the stage?
Right. Yeah, that's the... Yeah.
Yep.
Because I'm like, great. Now I have to go back and kill all these fucking idiots that they need me to kill because you just threw me through like a quarter of the stage.
Yes. I first use it in Westopolis, which has two, the hero and the dark mission are kill X number of things. And I used it and it shot me through the whole stage. And I didn't know then I would have to go back and kill all the enemies in the stage. I'm like, oh, more will spawn. I'll find more along the way. They surely wouldn't make me not. No,
they are finite amount of people in every stage.
Yes, absolutely. And except for the stages where you don't have to kill things, and it seems like enemies just spawn wherever. So yeah, absolutely nuts. But yeah, I think Keith has a really good point. If we're trying to be positive about it, they had a vision. They tried to execute and craft around that vision. I just don't think they ultimately succeeded on what they set out to do. I would say no.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, you say no as well. We've touched on a lot of bad things, and might have come up. The last thing I had in here was audio visual presentation. Do you have anything enlightening you'd like to say about the audio visual presentation? What did you think about the way it looked and sounded?
So I played a bit of the PS2 version, and I noticed in your review scores, the PS2 version often got lower scores. And
yes,
I wonder if that's on the presentation side, because the PS2 version looked a little darker and like grimier and just overall kind of gross, which is actually kind of suitable for this game.
Right.
But I was having issues with the homebrew on my PS2, so the game kept locking up. So I switched over. God help me, I have another version of this game. I switched over to the GameCube version, and it looked a lot better.
Interesting.
Just a lot brighter. Everything looked a lot sharper. Presentation wise, like a graphical presentation it's fine. Those cutscenes look damn good when they show up. I mean, there's maybe only like 4 of them, maybe. At least that I saw. And I mean, it looks good. I think the menus are gaudy. They look like shit. I mean, it's very 2005. I mean, it's of its time. And the music is the level music, the level or the music playing during actual gameplay is disappointing. I think it's very forgettable. Because like when I think of Sonic the Hedgehog, like Sonic, as much shit as I talk about Sonic, those soundtracks fucking bop, man. Like they're really good. There is like nothing in here. Like I can't remember a single song from, besides for just generic nu metal guitar riffs, which like generic nu metal guitar riffs don't sound good when there's like nothing else going on in the song. Like it's just when it's just repeated on like a loop, it's just like it's just noise at that point. And I'm a metal guy. People who know me know I fucking love metal. God bless for Crush 40 becoming the house band for Sonic Team. I'm glad they're a working band. They're like one of those bands I imagine they were like sitting in their parents' garage and they're like, man, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing dive bars. Maybe we should become a wedding band or something, and then like, I don't know, the bassist or something was like a closet Sonic fan, sent a tape to Yuji Naka, and Yuji Naka resonated with it because he's a fucking edgelord or whatever. But
that's canon. That's how it happened.
Crush 40's not a metal band. Like they're just whatever Sonic Team needs them to be. And so like while like the music itself, like I'm like, all right, it's okay. I've said this before, like as soon as that singer starts singing and those fucking lyrics, I'm just like, I'm out. Like I'm fucking out. Like I'm done. And so I just think overall, like the music is a huge turd to me. But you know what's great? You know what you're introduced to like almost right off the bat with this game? Gunshot noises.
Oh yeah.
Like immediately. Do you want to create a new save file? Okay, gunshot noise. Like it's just
anytime you select a menu item in the main menu is a gunshot. And that was the most shocking thing to me because I'd seen this game played before on like Let's Plays and retrospectives and stuff, and I don't remember that being the case. And I think we both started playing like relatively around the same time because I think one of us texted the other just like, "Do you hear these gunshots on this menu right now?" And
dude,
that
yes.
was like that was our first like impression of like talking to each other about this game. We're just like, these fucking gunshots on this menu are insane, and not even like good gunshots. They just sound like somebody went to like a generic sound effects website and just found gunshot and just put it on there.
Gun.mp3.
Exactly. Like off of YouTube and just like rip it from YouTube or whatever.
And this is right after like the killer fucking FMV, like at the beginning of the game, which is just full of cringy goodness.
So in terms of setting the tone for this game, it gets an A+ because you get this the FMV at the start and it's edgy as hell, and then immediately you're just getting gunshot sounds at you from the main menu. So in terms of setting atmosphere and of setting expectations, that's an A+. That's spectacular.
Agreed. 100%.
So yeah, the gunshots are wild. I'm glad you brought up the cutscenes because I thought about that today as I watched a couple of them. I was like, man, the cutscenes in this game, the fully rendered out CGI cutscenes are really good. They look really good for a PS2 game from this era. There are things back then that don't look that great. I can't take that away from it. Those are pretty good cutscenes. Everything else kind of just looks like what I would expect on the PS2, and I'm glad you played the GameCube version. And I don't know if I'd have any. I emulated this. Ooh, come take me to jail, whatever. I emulated it on the PCSX2, which is the PlayStation 2 emulator. I wonder if I was to find a GameCube emulator and play it, if the GameCube ROM would look better, or I don't know if because I'm playing it on like a modern screen on a laptop, if there'd be any noticeable difference really. So I'm assuming that I'm assuming points got docked from the review scores for the PlayStation version because it probably just looked worse, which is funny to me because I figured that they would want to make that one look the best since the PS2 is like the biggest console from that generation. But I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
The PS2 is was notoriously hard to develop for, so maybe it was just
that too. And is this the first Sonic game that was on PS2? That would be
Good
something
question.
maybe to look at too, if it was. So maybe the combination of it being the first time maybe Sega worked with the PS2, it was hard to develop for, and then maybe the Xbox version worked better because Xbox is basically just a PC anyways, right? I mean, I assume it's just a PC anyways.
Yeah, Microsoft had a history of working with Sega too, so
that too. So that's probably what it was. But yeah, I wasn't necessarily impressed by really anything visually from like the in-game cutscenes or anything like the gameplay or anything like that. I thought it was, watching a playthrough of Sonic Adventure 2, I thought it was comparable to that game. I wouldn't say it was any marginally better than Sonic Adventure 2, which I guess makes sense because this is the same console generation as the Dreamcast. So
yeah,
I guess that makes sense. I would say that the CGI cutscenes is where the game probably wins over those first couple of Sonic Adventure games. And I didn't really watch anything of Sonic Heroes, so I don't know. So I just, it's certainly not the worst PS2 game I've ever seen. I wouldn't put it up there as the best. It's not awful, but it's not good. I guess it's passable. Yeah, the music, I think I wrote in my notes that the music reminded me of the Bruce Faulkner DBZ score, which is just kind of like this ridiculous background music that they put in when they did the dub or whatever version of that dub was, and it's just guitars and all this stuff and just kind of like background noise. Usually the Crush 40 songs I can kind of vibe with, but this time the two specific ones, I think it's I Am and All Hail Shadow, are like very specifically geared towards the character of Shadow, whereas like what are the ones for Sonic Adventure? Live and Learn and Open Your Heart,
City?
I think are the two.
Escape the City, Crush 40?
I don't know, maybe. All those bands kind of blend together, but those songs they're like just kind of like generic like rock songs.
Sure. Whereas
like the songs written for Shadow are very specifically about him and like reference him in the lyrics and makes it a little more cheesy. And I just, I don't like these as much. They're not great. The music is just not, but the music is better mixed. They figured out mixing in this game for sure, because the main issue we had with Sonic Adventure was the mixing in that game is horrendous. It's awful. The music's too loud. The characters are too soft. It's all over the place. The mixing in this was better than that. So at least they finally got that figured out. And then I'm trying to think of from what else I had in my notes. They roped Goku voice actor Sean Schemmel into this. He was Black Dune. The voice acting isn't, I guess it's not any worse than anything I've heard in the Sonic franchise so far. No, it was fine. Shadow was a little over the top and edgy. That was kind of funny sometimes. So,
I hated
I
hated the heroes nagging you the entire time. It's almost nonstop.
Yeah, but this wasn't horrendous in terms of voice acting. There's certainly worse stuff I've heard on the PlayStation 2. So I just think as a package, it's just not. Everything is mediocre, and just when you put that all in a package and it working together, it just doesn't hit it all. And then level design I felt was kind of unmemorable too. It's either you're in like a dark city or dark something where it's dark, or there's something that's there's and then there's a couple stages where they're like really bright and colorful. So just the dichotomy there of having super dark like castle or city stages and then just like really bright other stages was just like hurt my eyes sometimes. So overall though, like a really dark, gritty kind of looking game, which I mean it is fine. But yeah, I don't really have too much more other than that to say about it. It's certainly not the worst example visually or audio wise of a PS2 game, but I just think as a package combined with what they're trying to do with the story and the way Shadow plays and the gameplay and stuff, I just don't think it works.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say this is probably like the most appealing part of the game, if anything. But can I ask you a personal question since you kind of brought it up? The Dreamcast was competing with what consoles?
I would assume the PS2 and the GameCube, probably. That's that same generation, right?
Right,
I think
the Xbox. What generation is that?
I think the Dreamcast got out first, though. I think that's... Oh, shit, you're going to make me... I don't know off the top of my head which one that is. I can type in here. That's the 6th generation of consoles.
Okay, right. Okay.
So, and we're on the 7th.
Asking.
I think we're on the 9th generation.
Yeah, right.
So, but
okay.
I mean,
I just
have
a personal vendetta. That's all.
Against what? The PlayStation? Or against the Dreamcast?
Both?
Okay. Fair, I guess.
This will be a mystery only to some people.
Okay. Well, again, I mentioned the comparison earlier. I don't know if that was on air or whatever, but 2005 was the same year that Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. And I think for a game on the PS2, that's one of the games that I think is the pinnacle of what the PS2 was capable of. So, and I don't think Shadow remotely comes close to that in anything. So,
God, yeah,
that's my lens.
This is a late
PS2
game.
Late PS2, because next year we were getting, in 2006, we were getting the PS3.
Right.
And then the Xbox 360 was also right around the corner. And then I think the Wii as well. But I don't know if anything on the Wii looks better than anything on the PS2. So
yeah, right.
Jury's still out on that one. But yeah, presentation audio, just kind of meh. It's a meh burger for me. I mean,
yeah, I mean, when I say it's like the most appealing thing of the game, that's not saying a whole lot. But again, I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to take the hero path now. Who knows?
Maybe you are trying to take the hero path.
I did the heel turn.
Yeah. So we've kind of reached the end of the outline. I think we've touched on probably every part of this game and more than I thought we were going to. Keith, before I wrap it up here and we shill our stuff, any final thoughts on Shadow the Hedgehog? Do you recommend it? Should people play it? What do you think? I
mean, just remembering, booting the game up for the first time and hearing the menu noises and sitting through the FMV, and then even playing through Westopolis, I was actually kind of optimistic. I was like, this seems dumb enough to be fun. And then that feeling didn't stick around too long. This game sucks. I don't think anybody should play it. Like I said at the top of the episode, I'm a glutton for punishment. Some would say I'm a little too curious about video games. And, even if I don't enjoy a video game, I know I've said this a couple of times on various other podcasts, I feel better for having at least played them and enjoying them in some aspects. But overall, yeah, I don't think you need to play this one. Again, I mean, even as the story goes, like you're not going to come away knowing exactly who Shadow is by the end of this game. So that's the mystery of the entire game. Like, and they don't really answer it. I mean, they do, but it's just like, really, that's all I get is a kind of a fuck you. Like, I don't know. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, I would, again, I said at the top of the episode, I'm one of the most positive motherfuckers you'll ever find on the internet about video games in general. There have been very, very few where I've walked away and been like, this was a waste of my time. And even now playing this, I wouldn't say that playing Shadow the Hedgehog was a waste of my time, because
Same.
I got to do a podcast with you, and creating something with friends is worth it. If you are just going out of the way to play this out of sheer curiosity, I would say even if you're like the biggest Shadow the Hedgehog fan and you want to find out more about him, like he said, I don't think this 3-game story arc that starts in Sonic Adventure 2 and concludes in Shadow really does a good job of letting you know who he is or what he's about, because it's just a lot of nothing, and a lot of any motivation that he would have is not his own motivation. And by the end of Shadow the Hedgehog, it's just, they're just like, oh, now he has a clean slate, when what his slate was already relatively clean to begin with, because we didn't know anything about him. And we were hoping to get some more light shed on like who he is and who he wants to be as a character at the end of this game. And he throws away the Maria picture basically as the symbol of, he's starting over. He's leaving his past behind. So it's like, even at the end of this game, if you work hard to get the true ending, you aren't rewarded for the time that you would put into the 3 games to learn about Shadow. It's not a reward. It's not a payoff. And yeah, I would have a hard time recommending it, even if you're like a giant Sonic fan, even if you're a gigantic Shadow fan, which if you are, that's fine. And coming at this, I totally realize that there may be somebody that stumbles across this and they love this game. It's their favorite game of all time. Believe me, I am fans of games that people mock routinely on the internet every single day. So like, I get it 100%, but just everything as a package about this game, I don't feel like it works. The story, the gameplay, the graphics, the audio, the visual, anything that they tried to do with it. Like, they had a goal and they tried to execute on it. And I just don't think that it worked. Although I will say that this game was commercially successful. It sold 2 million units. That was a lot back then. Like, it was commercially successful to the point where it was able to be a PlayStation greatest hits. You went to the store and you saw the greatest hits. Yeah, they had the red banner on the top of the box and they were like $20. So it sold enough to qualify for that program.
Not to extend the length of this episode real quick, but it's like that's also across 3 consoles. So
okay, you're also right. That's true. It did have to hit a certain threshold on the PlayStation though to qualify for that. So
what a low bar that must have been.
It must have been.
But to be fair, I wonder if a lot of PlayStation 2 was the best selling console, so it's like, yeah, a lot of those copies had to have been from the PS2, I'd imagine.
Yeah. But on the flip side, you could also make the argument that the PlayStation 2 is also the most successful console of all time. It had like 150 million units out there, and it only sold 2 million across 3 games. So, I mean, you could look at it that the other way too. But also, again, too, people were still buying, like, they were still putting out PlayStation 2 games till like 2014, and they were still selling that console. So, like, I don't know. It's all over the place. But yeah, in terms of a video game, in terms of a package, like, I would have a hard time recommending this to you because I started out like you. I was like, Westopolis. I was kind of laughing at the cheesy cutscenes with Shadow and having amnesia, and then Westopolis, you go into it, and I was kind of having a good time, and then just after that, I wasn't having a good time anymore. So, me personally, I can't recommend this to anyone. It's just, I don't think it's worth it. Even if you're not making it specifically for content, like, basically our motivation to play this was, like, I texted Keith, I said, it's the year of Shadow, we have to play Shadow the Hedgehog. That was, like, the catalyst behind us wanting to play it. If you're not doing that, if you're not creating content, I don't think it's like you only have one life. Do you want to spend 8 to 10 hours of that life playing Shadow the Hedgehog? I would not recommend it.
Do you want to sit around and talk about it for 2 hours?
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to play it for 10 hours and then talk about it for 2 hours?
I will say, I mean, the one thing that came out of this for me was like, I kind of want to go play Sonic Adventure 2 now, to be honest.
It's funny that you said that because I thought the same thing when I finished it and I was doing the research for the story. I was like, I should probably really play Sonic Adventure 2. And I guess the natural lead-in will also be Sonic Heroes. So it's the year of Shadow. I will probably play those for the year of Shadow. So, but it'd be fair to say that you and I going in didn't know that this was, I guess, kind of the concluding entry in like a trilogy of Shadow games here.
No.
So
I had no idea about Sonic Heroes. I heard
so if you really
want to
be,
but I didn't know it was so integral to the plot.
If you really want to be mad at us for not experiencing the Sonic lore the way it was intended to, like, that's fine. I apologize. I didn't realize until after playing the game and doing the research that, yeah, those 2 games were integral to the plot of this game. I just thought Keith and I were going to play a game that was generally considered not great by everyone for Year of Shadow, and it would be a content thing. So that was the motivation. And whether or not this episode's successful, I guess will justify whether it was time well spent or not. But yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Hopefully those 2.5 million people show up.
Yeah, I'm sure my inbox will be filled with angry messages. And I've seen the videos too, so I know there are people that actually do regard this game very well. And again, I appreciate that. I respect your opinion. Unfortunately, we're just not on the same side of that fence as you.
To our defense, I mean, it's not like we were just like, oh, this game is bad because it's bad.
No.
We talked about this for fucking 2 hours.
Why we thought so. And there were even times where we were like, yeah, actually this wasn't that bad. And
Sure.
I felt like there were points where we gave the game the points it deserved to have.
Like, we understand what the game was going for. They just didn't.
Yes.
They
yes. I think that's the most fascinating thing about the game's legacy is they wanted it to be this vehicle to push Sonic as to like whatever demographic they thought this was going to appeal to. And this is the way they went about it, and this was the result of that. I think that's a very fascinating legacy for this game to have. I very clearly, obviously, didn't succeed and is not looked upon well today, but it's cool to see that whole aspect of it and understand the plan from beginning to execution. I think that's cool, and that's kind of the point why we do this.
I think the biggest disservice of the year of Shadow is that Shadow the Hedgehog did not get remade.
I would think,
because good games get remade all the time.
Bad games get remade all the time.
Bad games need the remakes more.
If they drop Shadow the Hedgehog remake by the end of the year, we might be doing another episode.
We have to do this all over again.
I would hate to say, yeah, we'd have to just, it would have to be the Shadow the Hedgehog episode remake episode. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog is we've laid out our case very well. If you're so morbidly curious, I would go and check it out, I guess. Don't subject yourself to all 10 endings. Please don't do all 326 paths. It's like some kind of sick like challenge joke. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Like that's insane. So just please don't do that. With that being said, we're gonna wrap it up here. This is longer than anybody should talk about Shadow the Hedgehog. Yes. So, Keith, do you want to shill some stuff you want to shill? Where can the people find you? What are you up to?
I mean, not really.
On the internet. Okay.
I mean, everybody knows who I am and where I'm from. I guess, yeah, if this brought in some new people, hi, I hosted the Main Quest podcast, a retro gaming podcast going over my library of games that I played as a child. Eric has been on plenty of episodes. He's even forced me to play some rather decent games like Golden Sun. And I also am the host and co-host as well to my buddy Ryan on what are we calling that podcast now? Edit this out. High Score Cinema, which hopefully will have its own feed finally by the time this comes out. So, at High Score Cinema, we are essentially watching movie adaptations of video games. And Eric was on one of them for Monster Hunter, the Monster Hunter episode.
Oh, yes.
And we are definitively ranking the movies to find what is the best video game movie out there.
And if I do say the best way to do that is to watch the movie and then listen afterwards, because it greatly enhances the listening experience for sure. Monster Hunter was a movie that was made. And that is all I will say about that.
I'm never really ready to shill my stuff anymore, to be honest, because I feel like I've been out of the game for so long. So
yeah, no, I get it 100%. I have to get back into the swing of things too, because I've kind of been off this summer. But yeah, this is the Unlockables. Congratulations, you found this podcast. If this is your first episode, like, God bless you. What an episode to jump in on for sure. But it's the story of video games, people who play them, memories made along the way. I have on guests. I talk about games. Yes, Keith.
No, I'm just being annoying.
Oh, you're just pressing the thing? I thought you were actually utilizing the hand raising thing.
No.
Great. I'm going to fucking start this all over. So
sorry.
That's okay. I was very confused.
Why won't it go away?
I don't know. There we go. I thought you just kept pressing it and unpressing it. I was like, what the fuck? As for me, hi, my name is Eric. This is the Unlockables. You've already found the show. And if this is your first episode, wow, what a first episode it is. I hope you'll stick around for some other ones. But as I said at the top, this is the story of video games, people who play them, the memories made along the way. I have friends on to talk about games. I have friends on to talk about their shows. I talk about video games myself. I've been doing a lot more solo stuff ever since my first kid was born, but now I'm trying to get back to some of the collaboration stuff. You might know me from my most popular thing, which is Guiding Keys, the story of Kingdom Hearts, and I'm playing through the entire Kingdom Hearts series. As of this episode's release, I think some of the episodes on Kingdom Hearts 3 should be out. We're almost done playing all those. I'm very excited to move on to something else. I cannot wait for that. So if you want to check out any of that stuff, any of the social media, go to linktr.ee/Unlockables podcast. Follow me on Instagram, on the Twitter, whatever we're calling it now these days. There's a link to a Discord server in there, but my Discord server is very much like Death Valley. It's just barren. Not a lot of stuff happens in there. Most of the other action happens in the rest of the community Discord servers that we're a part of. So if you listen to any of the circle of shows that either Keith or I have been on, you'll probably find me in one of those Discord servers, and you can talk or yell at me there. So, but that is going to do it for today. Keith, I appreciate you letting me take 2 hours of your valuable life to speak about Shadow the Hedgehog, sir. It's always an honor.
Dude, no problem. I was totally hyped and looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now. Oh, that didn't work out at all.
Keith's just spamming me chat stuff in the chat. I don't know what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to hack my computer there, but God damn it,
it's supposed to be a gun.
That's definitely not a gun. Not at all. I don't know what that is. That's hacker. That's hacker code.
I'm trying to send horrible gun ASCII art. Nope, that didn't work either.
It's definitely not working, which would be the perfect way to end this episode. So keep trying. But as for both of us, thank you guys for tuning in. And always remember, it's not just the story of video games. It's the story of you. Have a great day, everybody.
See ya.
Step forward, 2 steps back.